Avec l'accélération de Frank Schleck, Ricardo Rico, il y a une chute de Schumacher, Schumacher qui est tombé. Oh là là, attention, on va d'abord regarder la victoire d'étape, la victoire de Ricardo Rico, certainement devant Valverde, il l'avait dit. Alejandro Valverde, victoire de Ricardo Rico sur le Tour de France, deuxième Valverde, troisième Cadel Evans, qui va revenir ensuite. Eh bien, on a Kim Kirchen qui est là, peut-être pour le maillot jaune, attention, faut décompter, parce que le maillot jaune, Schumacher, il peut le perdre, il est tombé.
I tell you what, they don't have to talk over each other, those French commentators. It's like listening to three blokes watching the race in a bar over a glass of pastis. Anyway, the gist was clear enough. Yesterday, Stefan Schumacher crashed out of the race leader's yellow jersey 300 metres from the finish line. And in doing so, he joined an illustrious and slightly concussed Tour tradition. In fact, it's 4 tours in a row now that the race leader has crashed, starting with David Zabriskie in 2005, who slid off the back of CSC's time trial formation and out of the race lead. Thor Hushovd suffered at the giant green hand of fate in 2006 when a fan waving a piece of promotional cardboard cut him across the arm on the run into the finish of stage 1. And last year, Fabian Cancellara came down in a crash at Ghent on stage 2, eventually rolling over the line, nursing a shoulder injury. And they're just the most recent race lead casualties. In 1998, Chris Boardman celebrated a famous prologue win in Dublin, but like many visitors to Dublin, failed to make the ferry back after touching wheels with another rider and hitting a wall on the way down. In 1991, Rolf Sorensen scored a unique double. First, he crashed to take the yellow jersey when Ari Osteja went down in formation during the team time trial, but still won the stage. Then crashed out of it again 3 stages later. Although having neglected to pack a change of clothes, he was obliged to wear it in hospital. Luis Ocaña famously lost the race lead in the rain on the murderously difficult descent of the Col de Mont in the Pyrenees in 1971, missing a corner, hitting a bystander, then being hit himself by Joop Zoetemelk as he got up. Eddy Merckx took the race lead from him, but refused to wear the jersey the next day as a mark of respect. A tragic comedy though, no one comes close to the leader of the 1951 Tour, the Crying Dutchman Wim van Aert. In fact, for a while after he went over the side of the Col d'Aubisque, no one could get close enough to him to pull him back up. In the end, his teammates made a rope out of all their spare inner tubes, and since they were stretched to uselessness in the rescue operation, the whole team had to abandon. So the moral of the story for Stefan Schumacher, I think, is that there's always someone worse off than yourself on the Tour de France, and it's usually Wim van Aert. Schumacher can count himself as unlucky, though, in that the rules yesterday would have kept him in yellow had it been a flat stage. Article 20 of the race regulations states that if a rider suffers a fall in the last 3 kilometres of a stage, he should be given the same time as the riders he was with at the time of the incident. However, that rule does not apply in individual time trials, self-evidently, or summit finishes. And the reason for that is that on flat stages, the riders are usually all together and going hell for leather. A mountain stage finish is obviously a different proposition. So we've so far had 4 yellow jersey wearers in the first 6 days of this race, and that's without a defending champion to wear it on day 1, which would have made 5. Alejandro Valverde, of course, took it on the opening day. Romain Fayou cheered up the home fans by taking it off him on stage 3 to Nantes. Schumacher's time trial victory put him in the race lead the following day. And of course, it's now passed onto the shoulders of Kim Kirchen. 50 years, incidentally, since the last Luxembourg rider to wear the yellow jersey, the great Charlie Gaulle, who went on to win the whole race that year. There's Kirchen at this morning's start in Brioude, leading the green jersey competition too, of course, but yellow takes preference. And he's got a lead of 6 seconds to defend today. That's the gap back to Cadel Evans in 2nd place. Stefan Schumacher is now 3rd, Britain's David Miller 5th, and Evans' closest rivals for overall victory are Russia's Denis Menchov and Alejandro Valverde of Spain, just under and just over a minute behind him, 1:03 and 1:12 behind Kirchen. Carlos Sastre is the top placed of the CSC Saxo Bank threesome. He's 12th at 1:34. Frank and Andy Schleck are split by 2 seconds and 1 place, 17th and 18th. Yesterday's stage winner, Ricardo Rico, is 31st, Chris Froome 97th, and Mark Cavendish 141st. Well, we're over the 1,000-kilometre mark now in the Tour, and after today's 159 from Brioude to Aurillac, we'll be exactly 1/3 of the way round. It's pretty much all up and down today, with the second category Pas de Pérols, the toughest climb at just under 1,600 metres. It is a flat finish, but a tough day for the sprinters to survive that long and stay in touch. Some beautiful scenery today, the stage starting in the Haute-Loire and moving into the department of Cantal. Some modernisation required, but price reduced for quick sale. Now, we heard David Miller saying he'd be concentrating on looking for stage wins after missing out on the yellow jersey yesterday. Well, he attacked on the first climb of the day and led an 8-man group over it. That group was wheeled in, but Miller and assorted others, including Jens Voigt of CSC, had another go and did put space between themselves and the pack, although only about 20 seconds worth. As you can see, the main field was strung out at high speed. Team Columbia had obviously decided Miller was too dangerous to let him get too far away. And it was at high speed, about halfway back down the line, that a flick became a swerve, and then a crash involving perhaps half a dozen riders. The field split, and there was at least one big name caught on the wrong side of it. Let's join commentary now with Paul Sherwin, and first Phil Liggett.
Well, we've got a race on our hands today, that's for sure. Paul Damiano Cunego in our picture now is in a group with his teammates, and they are in desperate trouble. The race is splitting up.
Well, this is one of the reasons why I keep harping on about this little point I make. You have to ride at the front end of the main field all the time, because you can never really be certain, Phil, when the main field is going to split. The main field is split at the moment into 3 serious groups, and that's because of the acceleration at the front. In fact, the reason he's out the back there, he's been involved in an accident at a very bad time in the race. But at the front of the main field, the real hammer has gone down from Team Columbia. They're chasing a 5-man breakaway.
Well, there they are. They're coming smoothly back, but it's been a tough chase. That it couldn't have happened at the worst time. It split the peloton. We didn't get any news of that fall, by the way, just the evidence in our pictures there. Meanwhile, it's Kees de Paan have come up to join Team Columbia here at the front of the race. We still have Jens Voigt, Carlos Barreda, Ronnie Schultz, Xavier Florencio, Benoit Vurenard and David Miller just ahead. They're certainly not letting them away. Frank Schleck there in the red top to his jersey, taking some early food, but Pezzato's there. This is a super racing course today, and the climbs are quite short and very sharp.
Well, I have a feeling, Phil, just looking at this, David Miller has a slight problem. He just made a slight indication to the referee at the side of the road there. I think he may well have a slow softening front tyre, which is why we're having a quick look here.
Yeah.
The neutral service car at the side of the road was ready to pass him a wheel up, but this is such a strategic point at the moment, with a 15 to 20 second gap over the front end of the main field, another 15 to 20 seconds over the peloton itself. I think he's taking the risk of just trying to ride on it. And there's big George Hincapie right in the middle there. Groupe Maillot Jaune, this is the group of the overall leader. Luis Leon Sanchez coming forward right now. He's a big, strong bike rider. Look at that acceleration. I think he's trying to work for the team, but I don't think he expected to false company with the main field.
At Taganac at
they've
the
called
moment.
the group. And in fact, Luis Leon Sanchez has gone straight by.
He's gone straight through. He wants to keep the momentum up now because he's got riders under big pressure here. Strong men will out. We've got 2 second category climbs, but the Puy Marie, which comes with only top it at 42 kilometers from the finish, is a very, very hard climb. More importantly, the descent of 11 kilometers is treacherous, and there are storms forecast in the region. And I hate to say it, but they're expecting a real orage to hit the race around about 4:30 today. Let's hope that they haven't got that one quite right. It would be right on the descent of the Puy Marie. So, and that would be big trouble for the riders, I think.
You just have a look at that gap there. It's still there now. Team CSC have identified this as a possibility, because CSC, I noticed, did have Carlos Sastre in the group. There are 5 riders from CSC. There's the yellow jersey. And in fact, we're just hearing there's a rider abandoned, and that's number 95, Mauro Facci of Team Quickstep, has just announced at the side of the road that he's calling it a day. Just having a look at this group now, just to see. This is the group of Denis Menchov. Well, the distance between the two groups is not very much more than 10 seconds, but that might change just now, because just having a quick look here at Fabian Cancellara, Jens Voigt, Andy Schleck, Frank Schleck, Thomas Lofquist, these are all big names, and this is a very serious group. And although we're still looking at 90 kilometers to go to the finish, they may well see this as a chance to put time between themselves and some of the other favorites.
Well, this is the hardest day of racing after a week, Paul, and the CSC boys here. Jens Voigt has had to change his role from attacker here to bridging gaps for his team, by the look of it. The whole of CSC getting to the front with Frank Schleck.
Well, if you just look at this, there's a lot of riders in this group from Team CSC. They've got, obviously, Jens Voigt, who was away. They've got Frank Schleck, Andy Schleck. A little bit further back, they've got Carlos Sastre, and that is more important. What I would like to do, Phil, is just look down along the line of this group of riders to see if Denny Menchov is here, because I haven't seen anybody from Rabobank, and that could be why they're insisting.
Oh, well, it's been a nasty fall here. That's the race doctor, right up alongside a rider. Well, I hope he hasn't hit that tree, but, you know, these are desperate moments, and riders are chasing wheels and may not have seen that tree on the right.
Well, when you race in these windy conditions like this, Phil, it is very difficult to try and stay on the wheel in front, and sometimes riders take some pretty scary risks just to stay in contact.
Well, we have approximately 20 riders at the head of the race now. Evans is certainly there, so too is Carlos Sastre. And Denny Menchov, there he is there. The Schleck brothers are here, Andy and Frank. Valverde is certainly there. Pereiro is there. Kim Kirken also, and Lockwitz and Kreuziger. So that's a very select group. They are the favourites, all got themselves to the front. They might continue here and get rid of the whole of the Tour de France. And welcome back to the Tour de France, the day riding through the Auvergne and the finish here in Aurillac. We're in the commentary box. Time now for your emails. Let's take the first one then, and this is from Michael Kirk, who is from Orpington, who, in the opinion of the commentators, has been the ultimate master of tactics in Tour history.
A lot of people would say it was Jacques Anquetil, because Anquetil was a master of the individual time trial, not very good in the mountains, so they reckon they used to calculate and work out his tactics on just exactly where he was going to lose time and where he was going to gain it.
I'll go for Lance Armstrong. He built a team around him with all of the abilities. His was the best, of course. He won the Tour 7 times. But even in the time trial, he made sure he had a man capable of winning a time trial, going out ahead of him and checking out that course and telling him where all the pitfalls were when he got back. All right, let's go on to question number 2. This one coming in from Adrian Game from Coventry. During the time trial, we saw Fabian Cancellara wearing the number 13 upside down. Was this due to being superstitious? Well, in fact, he still wears it upside down, and yes, I guess it is because he's superstitious. Any other examples, Paul?
Well, just a quick example. Harry Knetemann, the great Dutchman who raced in the 70s, would refuse to ride a race if he was given number 13. But one of the other superstitions is a rider does not like to shave the morning of a big race because he thinks that takes a little bit away from his energy.
Right, watch out for that today, then. Let's move on then. Mick Diver from Stourbridge. Has a rider ever won the Tour without winning an individual stage? Well, let's start with Oscar Pereiro, Paul, in 2006.
Yeah, 2006, no stage victories for Oscar Pereiro, but in 1990, Greg LeMond won the Tour de France also without winning a single stage.
That's true. There's only been a handful of riders, though, because the riders really do like to win at least one stage if they go on to win the Tour de France. The last question then coming from Melissa Lane and Andy Canning in Dorchester. With Solar going out, the winners of all the jerseys in 2007 are unable now to defend their titles. When was the last time that all 4 jerseys were undefended? I have to say, Andy and Melissa, this was a very good question, and in fact you spoiled our dinner last night. We spent a lot of time going through the history books. Paul, what did we come up with?
Well, the closest thing we could come up with was 1986. Andy Hampson was the winner of the Best Young Rider competition, the white jersey, and he was the only one of the jersey winners to come back in 1987 to try and defend his title.
That's right. Well, we have a feeling throughout history there are probably other examples. If any of you know those examples, please do tell us. We look forward to receiving your emails. Now let's go back to the action.
And there's been more early action on stage 7 than any previous day of the Tour. A significant looking split that saw a select group of 25 or so riders putting time into the rest of the field. Well, it lasted 33 kilometres and 40 minutes, but the big names evidently decided in the end that it wasn't worth the energy just to distance a group containing no one more dangerous in overall terms than Damiano Cunego. So everything came back together, but by that time, Christophe Moreau, the one-time great French hope of a Tour win, had dropped off the back. Not long after that, he got off his bike and abandoned what may well turn out at the age of 37, as he is now, to be his last Tour. There was a momentary scare for Peter Velits of Milram when his chain snapped, but he salvaged the situation with some deft bike handling, so no harm done, but just imagine the consequences if that had happened in the middle of the pack. Now, a 4-man break attacked once the field came back together. David de la Fuente, Josep Jouffret, Luis Leon Sanchez and Vincenzo Nibali. And as we rejoin commentary heading on to the final climb of the day, they have a lead of 2 minutes.
There's the breakaway, just over 3.5 kilometres to the summit now. The 2 riders from Sony Duval having their best day so far. Sanchez wants to ask a question. Now, in theory, as Paul has just told us, he's not allowed to receive a drinking bottle. But clearly, he wants to do just that, I would suggest.
Well, he probably wants to try and figure out just exactly what's going on in the main field behind now. Euskaltel Euskadi, the men in orange from the Basque Country, are no team at all scared of attacking. This is Mikel Astarosa.
Yes, well, that's an interesting move by Astarosa, because they're the only team who are good at the mountains. They've been on the defensive all day. They were caught, all of them, back in the chase group, and they had to get Zubeldia, their team leader, back into the fray. Now it's time for Mikel to have a go himself. It's a totally Spanish team. The vast majority of this team are all Basque riders living in the north of Spain.
2 kilometers to the summit. About 26 miles to go once they've gone over the top of this climb, and they've got a very long, tortuous descent over the summit of this climb, the Puy-Marie. Around about 11 kilometers of descending, and that's going to take them around about 11 minutes, because they'll be averaging pretty close to 60 kilometers an hour on the descent.
There's how the slope kicks up here as we come towards the top. It gets quite steep by the finish, and the crowd zigzagging the way up. There's the peloton, and round to the left, and just on the bend is the chaser, and just straight ahead there are the leaders.
Well, this should be the 1 kilometer to go to the summit sign for the 4 leaders, and then they will set themselves up for this very tortuous descent. Just a quick glimpse there of David de la Fuente. 2 years ago, he led the King of the Mountains competition in the Tour de France. This, again, is Astarosa inside of the 1 minute. Now, what he'll do once he gets over the summit of this climb, he will take all kinds of risks to try and bridge the gap to the 4 leaders.
There's the peloton approaching 1 kilometer as well. And the time check 1:29 as they get there. And that peloton's about, it's quite a big group, that, but it's certainly only about 3/4 of the Tour de France. There's a lot of riders at the back today. Cholik here, one of them, as he's now being unshipped with a big group of riders. But just hang on, because a kilometre from now and you will be able to recover and get back into that group.
Well, what a lot of riders actually do, and I know this from experience. Here's Fabian Cancellara at 1 kilometre to go. There's George Hincapie over on the left-hand side. Use your experience. When you get to the final kilometre, just sit up a fraction. It's a little bit easier. You know that you're not going to lose too much time in the final kilometre, and then take a few risks in the first corners on the descent, and you're back in the main field.
Well, amazingly, Paul, the silenced Lotto rider with Cholik there was Robbie McEwen, so he's also ridden pretty well to hold on. Should finish with the group today as well. Up towards the leaders here now. Who's going to have a little dig for the first prize over the top? Once they're up at the top, they turn a hairpin left to start the plunge down to the basement below.
Well, you better actually put your seatbelt on for the descent, because it is going to be a very grippy descent, with speeds on a couple of points approaching 90 kilometers an hour. But it's one of those technical descents where the speed will vary from almost dead stopped to 90 kilometers an hour, because it is one of the most technical descents I've seen in the Tour de France in a number of years.
Yes, very narrow, very tortuous. Takes us down to the valley. We follow a valley road then for about 20 kilometers, and then as we get into the town of Aurillac, they don't go straight through to the finish. They turn you right up a rather nasty little climb and bring you round that way to the finish. It would be a perfect place for a strong man to go clear for the win, and these boys might know that. As we get up towards the last few hundred meters, that's the top, in fact, as we go over the top. Now, just round the corner, these riders will switch back on themselves as they start the descent.
Well, a few years ago, we wouldn't be getting television pictures right now, because with the cloud coming down as low as this, we would have not been able to have the helicopters flying, which would mean no pictures, no live pictures coming from the Tour de France. But nowadays, there's a fixed-wing aircraft flies at 10,000 feet above the race. So even if the helicopters aren't able to get up there, at least we can still get the images of the Tour de France. It might be a little bit hazy, but that's because of the weather conditions.
Well, this is when I wouldn't want to be a cyclist or a motorbike rider going down this mountain, because we know what's to come. George is just had a little bit of enough here. He's just taking it steady there. The top is nigh. There's the newspaper, not to read, of course, but to go up the jerseys, shut out the wind on the descent. This low cloud doesn't stay with the riders very long. They will drop out very, very quickly, but it is very chilly up here. That's why it's foggy. The hot air clashing with the cold chill air, the Puy-Marie. It's a shame in many ways, because we can't see the magnificent view up here.
Stein de Volder moving up into second place. A little bit further down the mountain, arrière du peloton, the back end of the group, is of course Fabian Cancellara, but I'm pretty certain that the majority of the riders in this group, Phil, will reintegrate the main field. And yeah, there is Robbie McEwen, number 6. Impressive ride by Robbie, because Robbie he normally doesn't like the mountains like this.
Those boys should all get back here as we come up over the top of the climb. The riders are all at the top. A minute 26 is the gap, and now the big plunge down to the valley begins. We have just started the descent of the Puy-Marie. It is 11 kilometers, Paul, down here. As you can see, the road is narrow. At times it seems to get even narrower, and there's a lot of hairpin bends coming the way of the leaders.
Well, we're on the top part of the descent here, and these are real sweeping bends where nobody's touching their brakes at all. We're descending here at between 50 to 55 miles an hour. As we get a little bit further down, Phil, into the forested part of the mountain here, then it becomes a lot more technical. This is the chaser, Mikel Astrolosa, at 45 seconds. And the yellow jersey group are now at only a minute and 13.
Yeah, they're actually beginning to pull back, I think. The yellow jersey group is deciding to wipe out these leaders. They're chasing Astrolosa, who isn't getting any great sights of the breakaway on this twisting descent, but the same must be said of the peloton here as well. Just looking at the leaders, Paul, as the riders now are starting to go down. We've got 4 riders out in front. Mikel Astrolosa is chasing, but the whole field are right behind them.
Well, it's one of those situations where, again, you see Team Discovery, sorry, a little bit of a slip of the tongue there, Team Columbia, who looked very much like Team Discovery, the way they were riding at the front end of the main field, are riding a very sensible, controlled race, controlling the overall classification, Phil, for their man who leads that, Kim Kirken.
Well, let's see these pictures as the riders now. It gets very narrow down here, as you can see. Just watch this. And a little bit of a speed wobble there. And oh, dear me, and that's because the road has had rain, and boy, that isn't for the nervous, is it?
It certainly isn't. We did expect this to be a rather tricky descent, and once you have a little bit of a speed wobble or a little bit of a slide like that, your nerve goes, your bottle goes, and as you can see, this rider now is losing contact with the riders in front. But watch out when the main field comes down there as well, because everybody else will be a little bit precarious. And I suppose I'm hoping the team managers are watching this and they can give the information to their riders to say, watch out, it's damp at the bottom.
Well, as they start to gently descend here, you get some idea. This is the chasing peloton, which includes Kim Kirken, the maillot jaune. There you can see him. Everybody needs to have a little bit of common sense here as they make this descent. Now remember, that was De La Fuente, because of his poor descending, has been detached from the front. So we've got 3 leaders left up front, and not far behind De La Fuente now must be Astrolosa.
This just gives you an idea how difficult it is to get across a gap in a race like the Tour de France. We're on the back of the motorbike here, cruising down this descent at around about 100 kilometers an hour, and we still cannot bridge the gap to the 3 leaders.
As we get round to a sharp left-hander here, still no sign of the breakaway. They really have pulled away on the descent. 3 of them out in front, 33.5 kilometers. It's a long way down. It's the best part of 11-kilometer descent. There they are, 3 of them together. We are really having to move here. It gives you some idea just how fast these bike riders can go down a mountain.
Well, on a real technical descent, Phil, it's almost impossible for the motorbike to get around the corners at the same speed as these guys. Most of the motorbikes they use are fairly big road machines, and in fact they can't bank them over enough to get around the corners like the bike riders themselves can. So on the technical corners, the motorbikes are actually losing time on the bicycles, but once they get up to the straight part, then they can straighten it up. And it sounds as if there's a little bit of a crash.
There's a crash, and there it is, Paul, and that is looking though Johan van Summeren has dropped it there on the corner. There's only one man with his saddle out that far. He looks okay. Pereiro bringing the main body of the Tour de France down the mountain here. It's been a difficult day today for everybody concerned. They seem to have got through this stage ever so quickly today. We're only 32 kilometers from the finish. These are the 3 riders at the front. Sanchez is in a great position here because there's every excuse in the world not to help them, and yet every excuse in the world too to go and get the victory when we get down to the finish.
Well, these riders now are pretty much
very sharp.
They're off the top of the off the bottom of the descent now into the valley road, and they've got a long valley road now of around about 20 kilometers. And then the organisation, I have to say, are really quite nasty, because instead of going straight into the town of Aurillac, when they come into the town of Saint-Simon, where they have the final sprint point of the day, the organisation decided to take them onto a right-hand turn and take them over the climb of Saint-Jean-de-Don, which is a beast of a climb inside the last 10 kilometres.
I don't know whether they did that out of a sadistic nature, or whether because in the event of a main field coming into Aurillac, it was very, very dangerous to try and cross the town itself, and the only way round was to take them up this hill to the right. So we'll give them the benefit of the doubt on this one occasion. But here comes the yellow jersey peloton. If things continue like this, then it's going to be a nice day for the man in yellow, because he'll keep his overall lead. All these riders, of course, would get the same time at the finish if they finish like we're seeing them just now. It's quite a lot down there, but it's nowhere like the whole field of the Tour de France.
Well, a lot of riders will have peeled off the back there, Phil, on the descent, but they will start to reintegrate, because it's not a massive chase on the front end of the main field.
So as the chase continues, it looks as though 3 riders have got a chance here. 1 minute 26 over the yellow jersey group.
OK, time to pay attention. 2 key statistics, both of which are highly relevant, given the very strange, very mixed weather forecast for the end of today's stage. Aurillac has more hours of sunshine than Toulouse, yet curiously, it also produces more than half of all the umbrellas made in France. It's a fine place, is Aurillac, though, which in its 1,000 years of history has been repeatedly and unsuccessfully laid siege to by the English. But where they failed, the Tour has succeeded. This is the 12th time that the peloton has dropped by, and the latest in a long string of stunning backdrops on Christian Prudhomme's infomercial, otherwise known as the Tour de France.
Well, the race for victory on stage 7 is on to the final climb of the day now, and 4 men are still out front. David de la Fuente, Joseph Jouffret, Luis Leon Sanchez and Vincenzo Nibali.
These are the leaders here. There's still 10 kilometres to go under this banner as they come towards the top of the Côte de Saint-Jean-de-Don, and these riders are clear by 25 seconds. Remember now, there's nobody in between. You get an angle there on the corner of just how steep this climb is.
It's a nasty climb to put into a long stage like this right down at the very end, and the idea was to try and create a launch pad for somebody to create the surprise on the run in towards the finish.
And Schumacher is now dancing to the front of the group here as he keeps up the pressure. He's being shadowed by Cees de Pont because they've got Sanchez, remember, at the front. As they now start to go clear, that is a Pereiro who's taken the back wheel of the erstwhile leader of this race, who crashed out of the lead yesterday in favour of Kirken.
Now, looking back, there has been a reaction. It looks like it could well be Pipo Pozzato who's coming across.
And he'll cover for the rider up front and hope to take over from him if they get caught. He'll join, but he won't work with them here. They'll be leaving all of the work here. Is that Rico trying to cross the gap as well?
Everybody's now seen the possibility and the smell of a stage victory here this afternoon, because they're coming across in 1s and 2s. There's no real control in the front end of the pack. It looks like Ricardo Rico coming across, yes.
It's either Rico or Pipoli, one of them, but I think it's Rico. He's got that sort of strength when he joins on here. What's happened at the front? Because now we've got the attack.
David
and this is what we expected. Yes, David de la Fuente, the man in trouble on the way down, is now on the attack on the way up.
So too is Oscar Pereiro. He's seen the possibility here of a little move by him. Andy Schleck is around right on the back of that line of riders from Team CSC, and Ricardo Rico is taking up the pacemaking as well. This, you see, is a massive attack here on this final climb of the day, but from the summit it's 9 kilometers downhill, and it's a long way to go.
Well, this is only a small climb, but because of its strategy here at the end of the race, it is so difficult to handle. And David de la Fuente has really shot away here. Tremendous show of form. He's gone.
He's got a massive gap here. We saw him a couple of years ago attack on a number of occasions throughout the Tour de France, and all he's trying to do is get himself over the top of this climb, Phil, with a 15 or 20 second advantage, and he'll take advantage of the downhill to hopefully consolidate. But you see where the helicopter is. The helicopter is over the front end of the race, and here they come now. And Luis Leon Sanchez has taken up the pacemaking. He was probably the freshest rider in that group of 5, but there is the response from the yellow jersey. Kim Kirken coming across as well, straight onto the wheel of Stefan Schumacher, saying, sorry mate, you're not having this yellow jersey back this afternoon.
Good marking by Team Colombia's Kim Kirken there. He's done well. He couldn't let that man 16 seconds ahead of him. He would have handed him back the maillot jaune tonight. He'll mark him. He won't push on. He'll wait. He'll try and discourage him at 8.5 kilometers to go. This is the peloton, what's left of it today in the Tour de France. They pass over the top. Hanging on at the back here, Dmitry Fofanov of Kazakhstan. Looking at the leaders now, there's still a chance. You get an idea from the British flag just how strong that crosswind is blowing up here.
Well, I tell you what, this is still not a very large group. There's a small gaggle of riders just off the front end of this long line, but we really are putting the hammer down at the moment. David de la Fuente just still holding on as Luis Leon Sanchez behind is setting the pace to try and pull him back into the fold, but there's a lot of riders in that group, Phil, will be hurting.
Yes, and this man is hurting now. They're going to haul him back in at 8 kilometers to go. He's seen them coming. It's freewheel time. And that's the situation over the mountain. Sanchez Pereiro got up to finish the mountain in 3rd place. And Oscar Pereiro perhaps trying to remind us all he is now the official winner of the Tour de France in 2006. Although it's very hard to think of him as a winner of this race, but he's forcing himself into the picture today.
But he's also doing a great job for his team leader, Alejandro Valverde. Schumacher is in there, covered completely and utterly by the yellow jersey of Kim Kirken. Looking over to the left-hand side as Stijn de Volder was in that group. Cadel Evans is here, Denny Menchov is here. Phil, the heads of state are all very attentive, watching each other all the time. Well, this is the next group on the road. There's Eric Zabel, and it looks to me as if once again Damiano Cunego is the man who's been caught out. It's Alexander Bocharov on the front of the group here for Caisse d'Epargne. The green jersey of Thor Hushovd is still surviving here. That's why Crédit Agricole are going to ride like men possessed. They want to try and get Hushovd back into a position to win the stage. Now, this is the front group now, and there's a rider from Caisse d'Epargne shot off the front of this with Kim Kirken all on his own having to do the pacemaking. It won't be Alejandro Valverde. Kirken doesn't need to chase this.
No, and he's just going to keep an eye. You see Caisse d'Epargne playing cards for a win here, but Schumacher also wants the win as he stays up near the front as they continue. Now we switch back again to the second group on the road. They are still closing in. Oh, and then this man is caught up. It looks like Sanchez again. Well, I can't believe, how has he done that? He's got away again.
He's a great bike rider, this man, Phil. He is a class act. When we saw him win the Tour Down Under in Australia a couple of seasons ago, people said this man has the capability and the same kind of physiological assets as Miguel Indurain, and he rides a very good time trial. He likes to ride on his own, and now there's absolutely no reason to chase this man.
Well, he's just coming up 25 years of age, Luis Sanchez, so he's got to, and look at this now as riders slow down drastically and dodge. Anybody can win this if they hit it at the right moment, and they know it. There's going to be no easy ride to the finish now, because that's a rider from Liquigas who's had to go.
Well, if it's a rider from Liquigas, it could very well be Pipo Pozzato, who is in that group. 3 official kilometers to go to the finish as he swings around the town square.
We are crossing the centre of Aurillac now at 3 kilometres from the finish. Luis Leon Sanchez has gone for gold, not from the leading group, but he's been all day. He's been caught by the bunch, and he's gone away again.
Well, they're trying to pull him back, and you can see Liquigas all over the front end of this field now, and they're trying to set it up for their man, Pipo Pozzato, who took the race Bible a week before the start of this race and said to himself, I want to win here, I want to win in Aurillac, and he's done that in the past before, and he has come up with the goods. But this man may well be there to spoil the party. He's been in the breakaway for the majority of the day this afternoon, admittedly not doing a bulk of the pacemaking, but he's now got the ability to win himself his stage.
He is the national time trialling champion of his country for just over 2 weeks now, and this is his forte, riding alone against the watch. Well, he's now riding alone against all of the stars of this year's Tour de France, and they are still after him, but that gap is a very, very good gap. The big situation for his downfall, Paul, is the finishing straight is long, 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 and you can see the banner for well over a kilometre.
Yes, but if they don't get themselves organised, they're not going to drag this man back into the fold, because he's not the kind of rider who will crack. He's not the kind of rider who's got any weakness in an effort like this, and all he has to do is keep riding this constant tempo. A few more corners to go, and he'll start to line himself up for the finishing straight. Liquigas, if they want to win this for Pipo Pozzato, need to get their other man up there as well, and I think Kreuziger is in the group with Pipo Pozzato, so Liquigas, it's all up to them now if they want to win the stage.
It's 23 years since Aurillac gave home to the Tour de France at the end of the stage. Today, they're looking at a Spanish rider aim for the finish. The whole of the Caisse d'Epargne team behind will try to break up the chase.
Well, 23 years ago, the nationality of the rider who won here was Spanish as well, Eduardo Chozas, and that was at the end of a very long break. Now you can see there the two riders from Liquigas, they are sacrificing themselves for their team leader, who is just down there. That is Pipo Pozzato. He's waiting to see if he's going to get the victory or not, and I reckon if Sanchez does get anywhere near being caught, Alejandro Valverde will come out and look for the win, but 1 kilometre to go for the lone leader.
And in the far, far distance, there's not another corner in sight now, is the finishing line of today's stage of the Tour de France. He just has to sit there, ride it as if he's riding the national time trial title of Spain, like he was when he won it 2 weeks ago, and it just might come his way.
Well, he's got the concentration, he's got a big gap over the front end of the main field, and he's looked over to try and judge how much effort he has to put in, and he's just kicked that little bit more. He's looking for the 500-metre to go banner now, and I reckon Phil, he's got himself around about 12 to 13 seconds advantage. It's going to be very difficult to pull back a man like this.
Well, this is his third Tour de France. He's never looked like winning a stage before. He didn't even finish the last time he rode in 2006. But is this going to be his greatest moment? Boy, it's hurting out there now. He's got the Tour de France behind him, but they're struggling. They are closing, but I don't think they're going to catch him.
They will not catch this man here this afternoon, because he is a great individual time trialist. He's up to 200 metres to go. They're really doing everything to try and pull him back into the fold, but I don't think they'll do it this afternoon.
It's all over. Time doesn't matter to this man. It's the win he wanted. Look at Kim Kirkland coming at him behind. The yellow jersey is going for the points for the green jersey as well. But let's give Luis Leon Sanchez his word. That was a great win today. And on the line, Kirkland and Schumacher side by side.
And Pipo Pozzato right in the middle there as well, looking to try and get himself a few points in the green jersey race. Well, that was a great performance, and now this is a group here that contains a fair number of sprinters. There is Thor Hushovd, there is Erik Zabel, but they're not really, Phil, very many points left to sprint for.
Well, more importantly, more time lost there for Damiano Cunego trapped in this bunch. Hushovd will get a couple of points, not many at all. In fact, he'll get none for that. But again, more seconds lost, nearly half a minute, Paul, to Damiano Cunego. He's making his job very hard.
Well, Caisse d'Epargne opened the week with a win by Alejandro Valverde, and they finished it the same way. A group hug on the line, but a very personal win too for Luis Leon Sanchez, as he told Matt.
Bueno, hace 2 años, bueno, va a ser 3 años, perdí a un hermano con 14 meses mayor que yo, con un accidente de moto. Y bueno, todas mis victorias van dedicadas a él, y mi hermano también, que juega al fútbol, todos los goles que intenta meter y que lo hace bien, pues se los dedicamos todos a él, que esté arriba. Seguro que estará contento de vernos a nosotros, ¿no?
More dedications from Sanchez on the podium, and his one underlining what we've seen all week, really. Caisse d'Epargne up at the front and looking the strongest team of the contenders for overall victory. They had 3 riders in the top 6 today: Stefan Schumacher, Filippo Pozzato and Kim Kirchen, separating Sanchez from Valverde and Oscar Pereiro. Cat 11's Denis Menchov and Carlos Sastre all finished in that lead group. David Miller, though, lost time after his early exertions out front, arriving in the second group across the line 33 seconds down.
Your GC position is a bit of a curse, isn't it? It's not doing you any favours if you want a stage win.
Oh no, well I'll drop off. I mean, the idea today was to try and get the yellow jersey, so I'll drop off now and go for stage wins.
Then it might open up for you. By the way, we're live tomorrow from about 3:30, so if you're going to launch an attack, 3:45 would be about right. Okay.
I think I'll put myself at the back of the bunch and relax tomorrow.
That's 3:30 French time, by the way, 2:30 in the UK, and I'm sure Dave will do what he can for us. Now, 21 minutes 53 seconds after the winner, the autobus rolled in. In there were Chris Froome and Mark Cavendish, saving his legs and dreaming of the flat. We mentioned the crash that split the field early in the stage. Well, the chief victim of it was Lilian Jegou of Française des Jeux. Fortunately, not as badly injured as he looks here, but out of the race nonetheless with a broken wrist. Then, long after the finish line cameras had stopped rolling, Magnus Backstedt came in a terrible state. He has some kind of condition the doctors can't pinpoint that's robbing him of his strength and stamina. He collapsed having come across the line, having ridden the last 100 kilometres pretty much as a solo time trial.
What are the consequences for the rest of the tour?
Well, consequences are that I'm going home and the other guys are going.
Yeah, is that
going on? Yeah.
It's a bitter way to end it, eh?
Not again, I say.
Yeah.
A terrible way to leave the race for Maggie, an old friend of the programme. He was actually eliminated on time. We wish him all the best. Kim Kirchen, by way of dramatic contrast, looks to be in the form of his life, keeping the yellow jersey as well as the green jersey for another day.
You're the first rider from Luxembourg in 50 years to wear the yellow jersey. Is it becoming an ambition of yours now to actually win the thing?
Oh yeah, win or not, I think today have been a really hard stage, and the team worked very hard, and we haven't actually been in the long uphill climbs, and to control will be very hard. We have to wait till the Pyrenees after the first rest day, and then we can say more.
And what about the green jersey ambitions? Because you seem to have them as well. Where's the focus?
Yeah, but actually you in front, why should you not sprint and get some points?
Because points mean, well, the green jersey ultimately, but Kirchen's more interested in yellow for the moment. He still leads Cat 11's by 6 seconds. In fact, the only real change at the top is David Miller slipping behind Denis Menchov and Alejandro Valverde to 7th. The CSC contingent are tightly bunched now. Sastre and the Schleck brothers are 12th, 13th and 14th. Damiano Cunego slips back to 17th, now over 2 minutes down. So 7 of the Tour's 21 stages now completed, and remarkably, given the daily fluctuation in stage length, almost exactly a third of the distance covered. We'll take a look at tomorrow's route map in just a moment after the competition, your daily chance to get your hands on a very nice... So 1,186 kilometres raced so far, multiplied by 3, and you come up a kilometre from the finish line on the Champs-Élysées. Another 172 to ride tomorrow from Figeac to Toulouse. Now, there's one climb fewer than today. They're not so daunting, and the last proper summit is 100 kilometres from the finish, so there's every chance of a bunch sprint. We'll be on live with Stage 8 from 2:30 tomorrow afternoon, and back again with highlights at 7 in the evening. In the meantime, there's a lively podcast been posted about today's stage. You can get that from itv.com/tour. So no change at the top today, which is something of a rarity on this year's Tour. But as we've seen, calamity is an ever-present threat on the crowded roads of France, and the crowded finish lines for that matter.
Cadel, happy with the day's ride?
Yep, a little bit more action than everyone expected, but I got through it unscathed, so that was a bit of a bonus.
So far pretty smooth, the Tour de France.
Yeah. For me...
And the rest of the answer we will never know. I'm happy to say that after his fall, our cameraman John Tonetti did get up and rejoin the race. In fact, he's standing right there. No abandon so far on the ITV production team. We're at full strength, and we will see you back here at 2:30 tomorrow afternoon for Stage 8. And as we close the show, news that Spain's Manuel Beltran has tested positive for EPO. His Liquigas team are awaiting confirmation and say once it arrives, he will be sacked. French police aren't waiting. They've already sealed off the team hotel. The full story on our live show tomorrow at 2:30.